and welcome back to the reading series that we're doing live here on Blurred Lens Pictures um, for The Flower Maker. It's a new novel that I'm working on, and each day we've been kind of reading along with the new chunks that are coming along of the idea of the story. Excuse me. Sorry, I'm having a little bit of my Pabst Blue Ribbon. There's no advertisers here, but feel free to get your own tea or whatever you got going. And when I say tea, it could be a drink, it could be a smoke, it could be anything, anyways. Let's not get into that too much. But so the last couple of days, uh, we had been reading through um, chapter two. Yesterday, we started chapter two. And we were going over where he was. So the artist is out on the street. He started his morning routine. He is going over some of the people that he's met, and you're seeing some of the way in which he thinks, and how um, there's this story that's happening on the outside, and then there's also a story that's happening within his memory of sort of the past and different people that have been in his past, but also we're delving into this other idea that he has going on in the present that's been brewing, different ideas that he's been having, different stories, different ways of trying to write. And then of course we have, excuse me, the narrator, who is, you know, reliable, maybe. He's coming from the back of the mind of the character somewhere. Excuse me. And in the last um, video that we did, I want to get these quick. I want to get it going. I want to get us reading, waiting for people to come in. By the way, welcome to Blurred Lens Pictures. If you guys like the channel, feel free to like this video, subscribe, whatever you want to do. Appreciate y'all. Feel free to talk about anything you want in the chat. Get into some sort of artistic ideas, maybe literature ideas, anything you got going on. Feel free to get into some discussions about that sort of stuff. I keep these videos pretty short, trying to keep them under 15 minutes. The last two have been 17 minutes or whatever. Um, Maybe that doesn't leave the video on here long enough to keep allowing more and more people to get on. But either way, I like to move on with it so that we get to the point of each video, because that's what we're doing here, a reading series about the latest a little chapter in the novel, The Flower Maker by Brent Norrie. And so where we left off in the chapter, he's having thoughts inside of his head. The narrator is describing a new novel he had the idea for, called The Beekeeper and the Flower Maker. The beekeeper is, explanatory. The flower maker is some mad scientist who um, is thinking about making flowers that are more beautiful than God's flowers. So he's maybe a madman or something like that. Anyways, this is an idea that's swelling in his mind. This is a bit of a modernist take, maybe a romantic take, even on postmodern literature. Um, and then at the end of the last chapter, he was thinking about like this other story that he had, and this is going to be something that happens in the novel. Other ideas for stories that maybe I've had that aren't full, either movie ideas, screenplay ideas, um, fully fleshed out ideas, might turn into just a little pivot point or some sort of interesting thing to add along the way of the story. And so he talked about like this fat man he saw coming out of a car and going into the gas station, and it kind of reminded him of this idea that he'd had about this indigenous tribe, like a movie about an indigenous tribe with somebody like a Jack Black as the main character, and him being just sort of this fat outcast in the indigenous tribe. But when these European conquerors come, they see him as the chief of the tribe, um, because he's looks the most healthiest and looks the most well fed, and so the whole tribe then has to um, they have to have Jack Black be their leader, and he creates this whole new religion. But then it's talking about how the artist in this, the narrator talks about how the artist is like, well, maybe this isn't a full movie, this isn't a full thing to write about. Maybe it's something I can add into a story. So this is where we start getting a little bit postmodernist meta, where I'm talking to you in the present about ideas that he has that he'd like to do in something else, but he's telling them to you in the story. All right, so, and he talks about how the artist is having these thoughts. We'll begin today's reading. We're already 5 minutes into this, so here we go. We got a few pages to go, not as much as yesterday. So this is from chapter 2 of The Flower Maker by Brent Norrie. He could get sidetracked with these things all day, he thought. Besides, the character didn't even have a name yet, which meant he could be erased. But perhaps again, he thought, this could be a simple storytelling device, some minor idea that doesn't work in Maximalist, to be shrunk to a piece of good footing needed at the right time for an alpine climber. In the 10th anniversary to his Annus Horribilis, he began his quadrennial, which is to say, he turned 40 over that proverbial hill. Nonsense. Each day runs into another with only light, shade, and color. The constant is aging. The moments have piled up into Forgetful Land, that place he talked about in his novella, a mountain gaining in heights with every thought. And the place at the top had infinite room, and no one had to be sorry for what they were, because everyone was royalty, and everyone served each other and the land. Writing was like playing God, and the more he looked into the history of it, that's exactly what he found. Christ's major mistake, perhaps speaking too much. Plato lived a longer life. Looking up, he realized he had reached the gas station, and his first sight was the usual homeless man nestled in the corner nook in the back part of the store. He was just beginning to stir from a night spent in the mid-autumn air. One of countless others, seemingly everywhere. They didn't seem to be there as much when I was young, he would think. Or was I just getting older? Was there no way to save them? I mean, we don't even try, but a good start would be saving it from happening. Oh, nice. The newspaper. What do they have to say? Have they caught up to 5 months ago news? Are they on the other side yet, depending where the money is headed? The headlines are a troll, and these beasts live in a cave. Hello in there! Shall we shine a light and cable down? But who is the reader anyways? And what do they have in it all? What say do they have in it all? The writer has barely any control once the thing is written. If he looks too deeply into it, he'll see his own Caliban reflection. It takes great strength to carve the words to last as long as Enheduanna. And her words were of pain and fury and war and triumph and gods from the dark side of the moon. Had that just jumped into his mind now, at the same time he heard it playing as he stepped into the store? I suppose that could have triggered it. Did he hear it walking up, before the dull headlines? No, it had happened in order as he thought. He had said the line, and then the song began. That had been happening more and more lately, and he had noticed it happening. He didn't even call it déjà vu anymore. It was that synchronicity of things in the right place. He hadn't believed in it all his life, but lately he did. To him, they were simply signs. All of these thoughts would come storming in like thunderclouds with bolts from Zeus. And he'd half And he'd have to try to collect them and categorize them so they wouldn't get lost. And so he could get back to focusing on what he was doing. Another styrofoam cup. How many must be sitting somewhere just from him? He did the rough math in his head. Something like at least one a day for the last 15 years. Something in the range of close to 6,000 cups, waiting for nail polish remover, which would only destroy the atmosphere. He had a love-hate relationship with plastic, as in, it was very useful, undoubtedly, but perhaps humans were obsessed with it and using it for all the wrong reasons. He had categorized technology and plastic with selling things, in the binder which read, dangerously useful on the cover, in the file cabinet of his mind. Someone, somewhere, was getting extraordinarily wealthy off filling the ground with toxic forever chemicals. It's pathological, he thought. It's not even a choice. This thinking on meaning thing. It's built into the programming. He might have chosen another way if he could, but there was something lurking in the fascination of the searching for it. Being the eyes of God, perhaps. The full extent of its octopus arms. An infinity of arms and arm length. It was not an excuse, he thought, to claim pathology for his obsession with art and history and other people's ideas, which could be woven in his own tapestry. It was a self-described diagnosis. And he wondered how many others were secretly inflicted with it. He had noticed this peculiar thing when he was young, but now, with some age and experience, with tackling the Western canon of ideas, a whole entire carpet ride with Scheherazade was taking place on a daily basis. Stories were everywhere, and he could think of 1,000,000 a day. But the writing of the stories was something in itself. The whole entire grandiose delusion would take hold, and he would find himself in a Neverland, or an Oz, or a Wonderland. But they were his own land, inside his own mind, or so he thought. His own Yaknapatafa. Yaknapatafa, with a cabin on top of Grady Hill. A vortex of everything finding its place on his Mayan calendar. And then they would be others, in their thoughts, if they found what he had written down. And it wouldn't survive the explosion of the sun, and therefore he and the Beatles were something of the same. But for quite some time he had already began to believe that inventions were in fact not real. Ideas came from the constant infinity we were all part of, something like what Plato said. They were perfect in an invisible place, and when we created something, such as the wheel, it had always been. It was hard for him to believe that if there was life out there in the cosmos, that they didn't have TV screens, or cars, or machines, or books, or math, or their own stories of war and love, and understanding, or misunderstanding, of order. And if we were to reach them, that they didn't have radio or computers. Or maybe humans were even stranger than he thought. Possibilities were endless inside infinity, surrounded by infinity. So set that aside, I guess, he thought. Good, they have cream in the machine today. I'd hate to use milk. He went about performing his coffee ritual, which had to be perfect and in the right procession, or else the day was not started right and could be a sign of things to come. A good amount of cream followed by hopefully freshly brewed bold. And then the morning count of 1, 2, 3, and just pulling the sugar away at the precise count of 4. Lately the sugar had been clumpy and ruined the design of his whole project. He could tell by the color of the coffee, the tone of the tan brown, how it would taste. If the exact amount of desired cream in any way came out as too light a tan color, once cup filled, the result would be a sugar-flavored water cream with hints of coffee bean. What a wreck of a morning could ensue. Though lately, he had developed a horrible habit of having his first drink of the day before he'd even finished his cup of coffee. Now, let's not paint our artist as too much of a neurotic. In fact, on the outside, he appears quite laid back, perhaps overly passive. He had lionized the Fonz and Steve McQueen and James Dean early on, and still felt a man should have some presence of a Darcy or an Atticus or a Clooney. But also, somehow, if needed, have the fighter's will to be prepared in violent forms of overly masculine, instinctual expression, to be smart enough to diffuse or defend, and again, to be left with the thought, which fights to fight? What things are worthy of a life lost? For violent acts can fragment more than any other in the cosmos. They are but the fireworks to entropy's celebration, the mere language of chaos. All stones unturned will never find the keys to these hieroglyphs. The register pops open in exact timing to the beginning of Pink Floyd's Money. And again, all the signs are there as he collects his cigarettes and coffee from the counter. The store is quieter, besides the music, than normal. He overhears the employees discuss the eccentric character Cat was fired yesterday. And that's where we are right now. So we're all caught up. Hang on a second here. My screen's a little dim because the battery's running low. Get my thing charged. All right. Real quickly, thanks some of the people in the chat. We've got people who are kind of interesting today. We got Maria Mercedes, man shut, poop. Cool. Appreciate you all tuning in. Again, this is a daily thing that we're doing. Just reading through. If you hang in and you're part of the series, you'll be along by the end of the novel, and hopefully it's making some sense to people out there that are tuning in. Either way, this is a great way for me to examine what I'm writing and to get it out there, and also journalize what I'm thinking about as I'm creating it. So again, if you're here right now, you're up to date with where we are. Appreciate you all tuning in. See you next time.